watch basketball because it looks honest. Sweat, hustle, pure competition. But what if I told you some of those games weren't quite honest? Not a star sitting out with a fake injury. It was something subtle, something invisible. A game that looks real, but was quietly shaped by hidden money. Point shaving isn't about deliberately losing. It's about manipulating the margin of victory, the spread, to benefit certain bets. See, the way this works, there are two teams put up against each other. There's a spread for them to cover. Say a team is favored to win by 5 points, the other team has to either win or lose by 4 points or less to cover that spread. To most fans, the score looks legit, but to the people placing their bets, it's profit. In January 2026, federal prosecutors in Philadelphia unsealed a 70-page indictment that explained a major multi-year conspiracy. What emerged was kind of startling. More than 39 Division I players from 17 different teams were allegedly involved, with current players like Kennesaw State's Simon Codle, Eastern Michigan's Carlos Hart, and Delaware State's Camion Shell. At least 29 games between the 24 and 25 season are named. Bribe payouts range from $10,000 to $30,000 per game. The betting network is international, touching games in both the NCAA and the Chinese Basketball Association before expanding to the US college games. Some players were still active as recently as this season, others had finished their college careers. These weren't games where a team imploded. Most violations were subtle. Players were instructed to miss free throws, take worse shots than normals, play soft defense early, just let the opponent run up the score against the spread. One of the most detailed examples in this indictment involved 3 games played by DePaul University men's basketball during the 2023-24 season, including a game against Georgetown men's basketball on February 24, 2024. In that game, prosecutors alleged that several DePaul players, Jalen Terry, Deshaun Nelson, and McWeber and Tane, were recruited by a fixer named Jalen Smith. Georgetown led 41-28 at halftime, covering the point spread in a bet of roughly $27,000 on the outcome of paid off. Text messages showed Smith praising the players. "I love Jalen Terry, he perfected his job. Shit, Nelson snapped too." Later that night in Chicago, prosecutors say fixers delivered $40,000 in cash to the players. In the second half, DePaul finished strong, ending the game with 1-point loss, 77-76. More plausible to a casual fan, but exactly what the spread bet needs. What makes this example remarkable is how normal the performance looked. Some players scored well above their averages, bad plays were hidden in the context of a competitive game, and there was no real public flags about it. This is public shaving at its most subtle. Another game was on March 1st, 2024. Kennesaw State traveled to Charlotte to play the Queen's University. It wasn't a rivalry game, it wasn't nationally televised, and it wasn't decided a conference title. For most fans, it was barely registered, but for investigators, this game became a blueprint. Queens entered the game slightly favored, especially in the first half. That detail matters because this game wasn't about the final score, it was about the halftime margin. Kennesaw State had a guard named Simon Codle. He was a real contributor, a double-digit scorer, a starter, but he wasn't famous and he wasn't untouchable, which made him useful. Federal prosecutors say that the days before the game, fixers approached Cowell. They didn't ask him to lose, they didn't ask him to throw the game, they just asked him to make sure Kennesaw State didn't keep it close early. Prosecutors say fixers even showed him pictures of stacks of cash, more than $100,000 as proof this was real. When the game started, nothing looked wrong, but the first half unfolded quietly and strangely. Queens jumped out to an early lead. Kennesaw State struggled to respond. By halftime, Queens led 52-39. They had covered the first half spread. Simon Cowell, he scored 0 points in the first half. To a fan, that happens. To investigators, it mattered. Because the margin wasn't accidental, it was profitable. In the second half, everything changed. Kennesaw State played better, Cowell scored, and the game was tightened. Kennesaw actually outscored Queens after halftime. The final score was 91-82. Competitive, believable, normal, exactly how point shaving survives. According to prosecutors, the next day cash was delivered, about $40,000 split among players who participated, and then something more revealing happened. Cotto allegedly tried to recruit teammates for future games. When he told the fixer, the response was simple. They'd flash even more cash. This wasn't a one-time mistake, and it was a system trying to grow. The Kennesaw State game wasn't unique either. Investigators later identified dozens of other games across multiple conferences, different schools, same patterns. Other games like Alabama Christian vs Texas A&M Corpus Christian on March 1st, 2024, Buffalo vs. Western Michigan on February 24, 2024, St. Louis vs. the Queens on February 20th, and Tulane vs. Eastern Carolina on February 18, 2024. These weren't isolated incidents, they formed a pattern stretching across conferences, divisions, and months. The conspiracy didn't just involve players, it involved a network. Fixers, often gamblers with access to betting markets and players, recruiters who found vulnerable players with financial needs or low NIL opportunities. Some had ties to professional leagues and betting scandals. The massive names of schools from Eastern Michigan, Fordham, Buffalo, South Mississippi, and North Carolina A&T showed how widespread this network had become. Most of the illicit money flowed through bets placed against teams on spreads in first halves. In some cases, wagers of hundreds of thousands of dollars were placed on single outcomes, such as Tosin covering a first half spread against North Carolina A&T in February 2024. Prosecutors estimate the group wagered at least millions of dollars in total from these games. The model was simple. First, you recruit a player with financial incentives. Second, you coordinate performance with fixers. Third, you place bets with sportbooks or casinos. And fourth, you profit with a manipulated outcome of hits. The consequences involved are massive though. The indictment carries charges of bribery in sporting contests, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, and wire fraud and related crimes. Penalties could include decades in prison and fines, a potential life-altering outcome for both players and fixers alike. The scandal didn't just shake college basketball. It raised questions about intersection of legalized betting, athlete compensation, competitive integrity, and the pressures facing college athletes with limited earning potential. For most fans, basketball remains a story of effort and skill. But beneath the final scores, beneath the box scores, there's a reminder. When money flows in freely and oversight is fragmented, even honest competition can be compromised. Not with dramatic jaw drops, but with small choices, subtle plays, and quiet agreements that escape public notice for years. Most fans will keep watching basketball the same way, and maybe that's fine, but once you understand how point shaving works, it's hard to unsee. Not because every game is rigged, but because we know some of them were, and they didn't need to look fake to be manipulated.